it was this itty bitty 20th of an ounce. You can barely see it. You see how tiny that is? This is this is a 20th of an ounce, right? This backed $1 full until 1913, 1914, when the Fed was installed. Then it backed $2.40. And then by the time Nixon took over and took us off the gold standard in 1971, that's when we went into that pure debt-based fiat system.
What do you think about gold and silver hitting all-time highs today, the day we're recording this?
I actually think that it's still really, really below fundamental value, and it's not really gold and silver hitting those levels. It's those spot contracts that are being traded that are hitting those levels, and even at the highs, they're not even near the true fundamental value or where they will go. And there's no doubt about that, because I can't give you a lot of guarantees, but I can absolutely guarantee that at some point, all assets and all instruments end up at their true fundamental value.
Yes. And also, it's two quick questions. When you talk about spot contracts regarding gold and silver and precious metals, are you talking about ETFs, or does that include other things?
Well, the ETFs are just designed to mimic the spot gold and the spot silver market. So I'm actually talking about those spot contracts that most everybody thinks of as gold and silver, because that is what they want you to think of. But honestly, Chris, do you think that Wall Street gives you any true price discovery in these markets today?
No. And there's a lot of manipulation being done in the markets regarding how they define certain things, like when we talk about a recession and changing the definition of a recession. But also, when we see an all-time high or a higher price in gold, more specifically, it's an indication of a failing currency, more specifically a fiat currency, going back to that intrinsic value that you mentioned, which is absolutely nothing.
Right. There are over 4,800 currencies. These are just a few examples of currencies that do not exist anymore, because these are all government-backed and debt-backed currencies. And it's significant to realize what's actually happening, because we're living through it again, and the whole monetary system has been changed, and people have no idea.
And it's changing kind of right before our eyes with everything kind of going on with the stable coins. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Since we're talking about gold and silver, there's been a lot of mentions about a revaluation of price of gold. If we see a revaluation, what does that mean? And what can people expect from seeing something like that take place?
Well, you can see it go from its manipulated level to an overnight much higher level. And really, that's why understanding the fundamental value of any instrument or asset is so critically important, because how many times can you be lied to and you do not know the truth? That is Wall Street's job, to lie to you, to keep you in the system, to nudge you in the direction that those that are in power want you to go in. But it's all a lie. And I can tell you for an absolute fact, well, how do you know what the fundamental value of gold, physical gold is? Well, this is how they create money from debt, and it costs virtually nothing to do that. So this is fiat money, and this is sound money. Sound money that is money that cannot be inflated away by governments or central banks. So it is critical, but they're both money. They're just the flip side. How is this created? By creating debt. And into the future, and I know I don't want to get too ahead of it, but with stable coins and my question on how they would justify that creation, it is a combination of purchases and debt. And we can get into that in more detail in a little bit. But if you want to know what the true value of this is, because remember, it was this itty bitty 20th of an ounce. You can barely see it. You see how tiny that is? This is this is a 20th of an ounce, right? This backed $1 full until 1913, 1914, when the Fed was installed. Then it backed $2.40. And then by the time Nixon took over and took us off the gold standard in 1971, that's when we went into that pure debt-based fiat system. And when you're talking about a revaluation, the official U.S. price of gold is $42.22, which is why this new ounce of bullion, this eagle, has a $50 face value. You can't buy it for $50, but it's based upon the official price of $42.22. And so when you're talking, there are a few things about a revaluation. Yes, it's going to be revalued. I don't think they're going to do it before they are forced to do it. And that means that would be when the public has lost confidence and they are making an attempt to regain that confidence. So this is also why I believe, Chris, that where we are right now in the monetary cycle and the shifts that are taking place, this is the most opportune moment that I have ever seen in my lifetime. And I was born in 1954 to get redeemable gold back in the system again. So that's what I'm fighting for.
Okay. Is that part of I saw one of your recent videos that had mentioned something for the Citizens for Sound Money movement. Is that what that's in reference to?
Absolutely, 100%. It's a local movement to get gold and silver legalized state to state. And then we can also go at the federal level, but it's also a global movement because we need to do this together, and everybody is experiencing a massive decline in living standards because they keep devaluing the currency more and more. I mean, it happened in Rome, it happened in France, it happened in what is this? Indonesia, right?
Now,
it happened in Zimbabwe.
Are you talking about states doing legislation making gold and silver legal tender, or are you just talking about people using it?
Well, it's a combination of the two, but what I'm really talking about is the legalization from the states and then them removing taxes from physical gold and silver, because that's actually money. And I think we've got a really good shot. That's growing. Missouri recently approved paying for property taxes and things with gold. Now, is the system perfect? No, it's actually not perfect and not as good as we need it to be, because it would be centralized and digital and all of that. And we have to have the ability that if we don't like what we see our government or central bankers doing, we can say, okay, in exchange for this crypto, this 40% backed, you can keep the rest of it. I'll take my 40% out in gold, because if it's not redeemable, then it is simply pegged to a manipulated spot contract. And it means absolutely nothing, as we've seen in Zimbabwe with that attempt and their overnight revaluation. We, the public, must take our power back. And this is the opportunity to do it, because once this system is fully in place, then I don't know when that next opportunity is going to be honest with you, another 100 years or so?
Yeah, and probably not in our lifetimes, that's for sure.
Not a second time.
So go ahead.
But I have to say, because, and I'm sorry if I'm pushing us a little bit ahead, but this is the most significant thing that I've seen. I can't say entirely, because I was there for Johnson taking the silver out of the currency, and I was there for Nixon taking us off the gold standard. But when President Trump signed the Genius Act, in my extremely strong opinion, I mean, Chris, there is not even one itty bitty teeny weeny little doubt in my mind. but that he already has changed the monetary system into a digital one. And I believe that it's the stable coins. This isn't the final one. I believe that this is the intro one to take us into that hyperinflation and that big enough crisis to seal the deal on the other side of it. And that's our opportunity, is the crisis that comes from this hyperinflation. But you can't start in 2 seconds. You got to start now.
100% agree. And you should have actually already started. And I want to add this. It's kind of interesting that you have gold and silver being listed in the U.S. Constitution, like federally being constitutional money, but yet you have to go through states to get when states are not supposed to have laws that are against the U.S. Constitution. So anything in the U.S. Constitution should automatically be in a state constitution if you think about it in that respect. And I say the government looks at gold and silver, I believe, as being a commodity.
In many ways, it is a commodity, right?
Right. But if they're saying constitutionally, if it's money, then how can because they tax a commodity, but you can't tax the currency, you can't tax money. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is a very significant point. Another significant point would be that when the Congress over Christmas, where there weren't very many people there back in 1913, that's when they passed the Federal Reserve Act, which actually was illegal. And why we, the public, allowed this illegal behavior, why we allowed it then, why we are allowing it now. I think I'm understanding it much more than I used to understand it ago. How can we let that happen? Well, if you don't take back your voice and you don't pay attention, and remember, when they were setting the system up, it's disgusting. But what they actually discussed was the fact that if people had to work harder to maintain a standard of living, they would actually have less time to pay attention to what the government was doing. To me, that's evil and vile and disgusting, but it's absolutely, you think anybody's paying attention? I mean, my own daughters aren't really paying attention.